The ground beneath Wyoming sits on top of a magma chamber 55 miles wide and 20 miles deep. Right now in 2025, scientists are monitoring this geological feature that dwarfs anything in recorded history. While the odds of an eruption remain extremely low, about 1 in 730,000 per year, the potential consequences would be staggering. Current atmospheric models show that measurable ash fall would blanket much of the western United States within days of an eruption. To put this in perspective, the 1991 Mount Pinatubo eruption cooled global temperatures for years. Yet Yellowstone's magma chamber is hundreds of times larger. The scale of what lies beneath Wyoming defies comprehension. The monster beneath Wyoming. What scientists have discovered through advanced imaging reveals two distinct magma chambers working as a connected system. The upper chamber spans 46 miles by 28 miles, extending from 3 to 10 miles beneath the surface. This shallower reservoir contains mostly solid rock with only 5 to 15% actual melt. But that small percentage still represents an enormous volume of molten material. Below this sits a much larger chamber, stretching down to 28 miles deep and containing approximately 5 times more magma than the upper system. Most people think of Mount St. Helens when they picture volcanic eruptions. That mountain blew apart in 1980 and made headlines around the world. But comparing Mount St. Helens to Yellowstone misses the true scale entirely. Mount Pinatubo in 1991 ejected roughly 1 cubic kilometer of material and cooled global temperatures by 0.7 degrees Celsius for several years. Yellowstone's previous eruptions expelled more than 1,000 cubic kilometers of material, making them over 1,000 times larger than Pinatubo. When volcanologists classify eruptions on the Volcanic Explosivity Index, regular volcanoes max out around level 5 or 6. Yellowstone would register as a level 8, the highest classification that exists. The Yellowstone caldera formed through a process that reshaped the entire region. Instead of building up like traditional volcanoes, supervolcanoes collapse inward after they erupt. The ground literally falls into the emptied magma chamber, creating a massive circular depression. This caldera measures 30 miles across and 45 miles long. You could fit the entire city of Chicago inside it with space left over. Most visitors to Yellowstone National Park never realize they're standing inside the crater of an active supervolcano. Scientists have identified 3 major eruption cycles that created the landscape we see today. The Huckleberry Ridge eruption occurred 2.1 million years ago and ejected 590 cubic miles of material. The Mesa Falls eruption happened 1.3 million years ago and was smaller but still catastrophic. The most recent Lava Creek eruption took place 640,000 years ago and created the current caldera. Each eruption followed roughly the same pattern: massive buildup of pressure followed by catastrophic release. Current geological surveys using 2025 technology reveal details that previous generations of scientists could never access. Seismic imaging shows the magma chamber extends much deeper than originally thought. Recent magnetotelluric surveys map the electrical conductivity of underground structures, revealing molten rock pathways that connect these chambers. The data shows an active system where magma and hydrothermal fluids continue circulating through complex underground networks. Ground deformation patterns show the caldera has been rising and falling in measurable cycles. Between 1976 and 1984, the ground rose nearly 6 inches. From 1985 to 1995, it dropped by the same amount. Then from 1996 to 2003, it rose again by about 5 inches before leveling off. Since 2014, new uplift patterns have emerged in different areas of the caldera. The Sour Creek Dome has risen 2.4 inches since 2015, while the Mallard Lake Dome shows different movement patterns entirely. Modern monitoring equipment detects changes that would have been invisible just decades ago. A network of 47 seismometers records every tiny earthquake in a region. These instruments can detect ground movements smaller than the width of a human hair. GPS stations measure ground deformation with millimeter precision. Temperature sensors monitor hot springs and geysers for thermal changes that might indicate shifting magma patterns below. earthquake swarms provide some of the most telling data about what's happening underground. In 2017, researchers recorded over 2,300 earthquakes in the Yellowstone region, the most active year since monitoring began. Most of these earthquakes measured between magnitude 0 and 2, too small for people to feel, but significant for scientific analysis. The patterns show magma and hydrothermal fluids moving through underground fractures and chambers. Gas emissions from the park's thermal features reveal chemical signatures of the magma below. Helium isotope ratios indicate direct connections between surface hot springs and the deep magma chamber. Carbon dioxide output has increased measurably in certain areas over the past decade. These gases escape through the same pathways that would channel magma during an eruption. Warning signs before a major eruption would likely begin months or years in advance. The earthquake activity would intensify dramatically, with thousands of tremors per day instead of the current few dozen. Ground deformation would accelerate, potentially lifting the caldera floor by several feet per year. Thermal features throughout the park would change temperature and chemical composition as new magma approached the surface. New lakes might form as rising magma heats groundwater systems. Existing geysers could stop erupting or change their patterns completely. The famous Old Faithful geyser has already shown timing changes over the decades, erupting every 44 to 125 minutes, depending on previous eruption duration and underground conditions. Trees and vegetation would begin dying in expanding zones as underground temperatures increase and soil chemistry changes. The United States Geological Survey operates the Yellowstone Volcano Observatory specifically to monitor this threat. Scientists analyze data streams 24 hours a day, looking for patterns that might indicate changing conditions below ground. Computer models process seismic data, ground deformation measurements, and gas emission readings to assess current risk levels. Current probability assessments put the chance of a major Yellowstone eruption at roughly 1 in 730,000 in any given year. Those odds might seem reassuring, but they represent active calculations based on ongoing monitoring. The volcano shows clear signs of life. It's not extinct or dormant in any meaningful sense. Magma continues circulating through the chamber system. Thermal features continue drawing heat from deep underground sources. The monitoring systems reveal a dynamic, active geological system that could potentially change rapidly under the right conditions. While scientists can't predict exactly when or if an eruption might occur, they can measure the ongoing processes that would precede such an event. The technology now exists to detect the warning signs months or even years before catastrophe strikes. But all this sophisticated monitoring equipment would become irrelevant the moment the mountain finally decides to explode. The first 72 hours of chaos. The moment of eruption creates devastation on a scale that defies human comprehension. A 100-mile blast zone would devastate towns within the caldera boundary, creating a circle of complete destruction spanning 31,400 square miles. Pyroclastic flows race outward at speeds up to 450 miles per hour, carrying superheated gas, rock, and ash at temperatures exceeding 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit. These flows move faster than commercial aircraft and obliterate everything in their path. Concrete melts, steel collapses, and vehicles vaporize before their occupants can react. The initial explosion sends shockwaves racing outward at the speed of sound. Windows shatter in buildings 200 miles away as the blast wave levels forests across thousands of square miles. Within minutes, the eruption column shoots 25 miles into the atmosphere, punching through the stratosphere and spreading volcanic material across vast distances. The electromagnetic pulse generated by massive electrical activity in the ash cloud disrupts communications, while modern monitoring systems face simultaneous failures as cell towers topple. Fiber optic cables suffer seismic damage, and emergency services lose contact with field units across the western United States. Current atmospheric models show ash fall patterns extending across 11 western states within the first 24 hours. Wind patterns typically carry volcanic ash eastward from Yellowstone, creating a cascade of destruction that spreads far beyond the initial blast zone. Wyoming experiences ash deposits 3 feet deep within 100 miles of the eruption. Montana's agricultural regions receive 6 to 12 inches of ash, making roads impassable and collapsing roofs across major cities. Denver sits 450 miles southeast of Yellowstone, and the city's 2.9 million residents watch the sky darken within 18 hours as ash clouds block out the sun. Even with advance warning, evacuating nearly 3 million people proves logistically impossible. Interstate highways become parking lots as vehicles break down from ash ingestion. Denver International Airport closes before the first ash arrives, stranding thousands of travelers. Salt Lake City faces a uniquely dangerous scenario. The city's 1.2 million residents live in a valley that traps volcanic ash like a bowl. The Wasatch Mountains channel ash flows directly into populated areas, and the city's geography means ash accumulates to dangerous depths even with relatively light initial deposits. Roofs collapse under the weight while the Great Salt Lake turns gray with volcanic debris. Interstate highways transform into death traps within hours of the eruption. Interstate 15 runs directly through the projected ash fall zone from Salt Lake City to Las Vegas. Truckers and travelers find their vehicles disabled as ash clogs air filters and damages engines. Interstate 80 across Wyoming becomes impassable as visibility drops to zero and ash makes roadways slippery and treacherous. Millions of people attempt to flee simultaneously, creating the largest traffic jam in American history. Gas stations run out of fuel within hours as panicked drivers top off their tanks. Store shelves empty as people grab water, food, and supplies. Banks face runs as people try to withdraw cash, but ATM networks fail due to power outages and communication breakdowns. Portland, Oregon, and Seattle, Washington face their own crisis as ash clouds drift westward on changing wind patterns. Both cities combined house 3.8 million people in their metropolitan areas. Ash falling on the wet Pacific Northwest creates concrete-like sludge that blocks storm drains and makes streets impassable. The region's numerous bridges become bottlenecks as people try to evacuate by car. Hospitals throughout the western United States are overwhelmed within hours. Respiratory emergencies spike as people breathe ash-contaminated air. Emergency rooms from Rapid City, South Dakota to Phoenix, Arizona see massive increases in patients suffering from silicosis, eye injuries, and breathing difficulties. Medical supply chains break down as transportation networks fail. Power grids across multiple states face cascading failures. Ash accumulation on power lines causes electrical shorts and fires. Windstorms generated by the eruption topple transmission towers. Coal-fired power plants cannot operate when ash contaminates their fuel supplies. Nuclear power plants shut down as safety systems activate to prevent ash from clogging cooling systems. Water treatment facilities struggle to process ash-contaminated supplies. Cities drawing water from rivers and reservoirs face immediate contamination issues. Municipal water systems shut down rather than risk poisoning their populations. Bottled water disappears from store shelves within hours, leaving millions without safe drinking water. The chaos extends far beyond the immediate ashfall zone. Stock markets crash as news of the eruption spreads globally. International flights avoid North American airspace entirely. Cruise ships change course to avoid West Coast ports. The ripple effects reach every corner of the continent within 72 hours. Even cities 500 miles from Yellowstone face immediate threats. Chicago's 9.5 million residents would experience ash fall within 36 to 48 hours if wind patterns shift eastward. The city's airports close preemptively, while Lake Michigan shows visible ash contamination. The entire Great Lakes region prepares for extended ash fall as the volcanic cloud continues spreading. By the end of the third day, the full scope of the disaster becomes clear. What began as a geological event in a remote corner of Wyoming has transformed into a continental crisis. Emergency services struggle to coordinate responses across multiple states. Communication networks remain largely inoperable. Transportation systems have ground to a halt. And this represents only the beginning of what scientists predict will be months or years of unprecedented challenges as the ash cloud continues its relentless march across the continent. When the sky turns black, ashfall in the following days would shut down power grids across multiple states, as particulate buildup on lines and substations induces short circuits, as documented in Pinatubo's 1991 aftermath. The ash cloud stretches from the Rocky Mountains to the Mississippi River, covering 22 states in a gray blanket that turns day into night. Cities like Minneapolis, Kansas City, and Oklahoma City experience total darkness at noon. Street lights activate automatically as sensors detect the absence of sunlight. The ash cloud moves at 60 miles per hour, carried by jet stream winds that push the debris eastward across the Great Plains. Just 3 inches of ash brings down residential roofs across Nebraska and Iowa. The weight equals 15 pounds per square foot when dry, but doubles when mixed with rain or snow. Suburban homes built to standard codes can't handle the additional load. Shopping centers collapse in Lincoln, Nebraska, as ash accumulates on flat commercial roofs. Mobile homes become death traps as their lightweight construction fails under even lighter ash deposits. Entire neighborhoods in Omaha evacuate as roofs cave in throughout the metropolitan area. Roads become impassable death traps as ash creates conditions worse than the heaviest snowstorms. Interstate 80 across Nebraska closes completely as visibility drops to zero. The ash creates a slippery surface that makes driving impossible even at low speeds. Highway crews can't clear the roads fast enough as new ash continues falling. Emergency vehicles get stuck trying to reach accident scenes. Snowplows break down as the abrasive ash damages their equipment. State transportation departments run out of sand and salt within hours of the ash fall beginning. Respiratory emergencies overwhelm hospitals from Denver to Detroit as 50 million Americans struggle to breathe through ash-contaminated air. The particles measure less than 2.5 microns in diameter, small enough to penetrate deep into lung tissue. Emergency rooms in Kansas City receive 400 patients per hour with breathing difficulties. Doctors run out of inhalers and oxygen tanks within the first day. Patients with existing asthma and COPD face life-threatening complications as their airways become inflamed and blocked. Children and elderly people suffer the most severe health impacts from ash inhalation. Pediatric hospitals in Minneapolis and St. Louis activate emergency protocols as young patients arrive with respiratory distress. The ash particles cause chemical burns in lung tissue, leading to permanent scarring in severe cases. Pregnant women face additional risks, as the stress and poor air quality threaten both mother and child. Nursing homes struggle to protect their residents, as standard air filtration systems can't handle the microscopic particles. Water treatment plants across the Midwest shut down as ash contaminates their intake systems. The Missouri River turns gray with volcanic debris, making it impossible to process for drinking water. Cities drawing from the Mississippi River face similar contamination issues as ash-laden runoff flows downstream. St. Louis water treatment facilities close after detecting dangerous levels of fluoride and heavy metals in the ash-contaminated supply. Chicago prepares for water shortages as Lake Michigan shows visible ash contamination along its western shores. Municipal water systems in affected areas stop operation rather than risk poisoning their populations. Kansas City's water treatment plant processes 300 million gallons daily, but can't remove the fine volcanic particles effectively. The ash clogs filters and damages pumping equipment, forcing emergency shutdowns. Rural communities dependent on well water face immediate contamination as ash seeps into groundwater supplies. Livestock across the Great Plains die from drinking ash-contaminated water, creating additional health hazards. Hospitals face cascading failures as their infrastructure collapses under the ash assault. Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota activates emergency power systems as ash accumulation shorts out electrical equipment. Ventilation systems designed to filter normal air can't handle the volume of volcanic particles. Operating rooms become unusable as ash infiltrates supposedly sterile environments. Medical helicopters can't fly in the ash cloud conditions. cutting off critical care transport for rural patients. Communication towers topple under the weight of ash accumulation and ice formation. Cell phone networks fail across the affected region as towers lose power and structural integrity. Internet service providers struggle to maintain connections as fiber optic cables suffer damage from falling debris. Emergency broadcast systems go silent in many areas as radio towers collapse. Satellite communications face interference from the ash cloud in the upper atmosphere. Vehicle engines fail by the thousands as ash clogs air filters and damages internal components. Cars abandoned on highways become obstacles for emergency vehicles trying to navigate the disaster zone. Ash particles enter engines through intake systems, causing immediate mechanical failure. Diesel trucks fare slightly better, but still suffer engine damage from the abrasive particles. Aircraft engines face catastrophic failure if exposed to volcanic ash, grounding all air traffic across the affected region. Commercial aviation shuts down completely across the central United States as ash clouds make flying impossible. Chicago O'Hare International Airport closes indefinitely as ash covers runways and damages ground equipment. Delta Airlines cancels 2,000 flights as aircraft can't safely operate in ash-contaminated airspace. Cargo flights carrying emergency supplies can't reach affected areas, worsening the humanitarian crisis. Military aircraft attempt rescue operations, but face the same engine damage risks as civilian planes. The psychological impact of prolonged darkness devastates millions of Americans unprepared for this ancient terror. Residents of Kansas City experience their first sunless day in recorded history as ash blocks 95% of solar radiation. Seasonal affective disorder cases spike as people struggle with the artificial winter conditions. Suicide hotlines receive record numbers of calls as the darkness triggers depression and anxiety. Children ask their parents when the sun will return, but adults have no answers. The ash. Fall creates conditions unlike anything in recorded American history, surpassing even the Dust Bowl of the 1930s in scope and severity. Modern infrastructure designed for normal weather conditions fails catastrophically under the volcanic assault. The combination of respiratory health crises, infrastructure collapse, and prolonged darkness creates a perfect storm of human suffering. Recovery efforts can't begin until the ash stops falling, but volcanic eruptions can continue for months or years. Yet even as cities struggle with immediate survival, the volcanic ash settles across America's most productive agricultural regions, threatening the foundation of the nation's food supply. The death of American agriculture. Corn and soybean fields across the Midwest face immediate destruction as volcanic ash blankets America's agricultural heartland. The region produces 40% of the world's corn and 38% of global soybean production across 127 million acres of prime farmland. Iowa alone generates 2.5 billion bushels of corn annually from 13.1 million acres. Illinois contributes another 2.1 billion bushels from 11.2 million acres. Nebraska adds 1.7 billion bushels from 9.6 million acres of corn production. These three states combined feed 2 billion people worldwide through direct consumption and livestock feed conversion. Historical models from the 1991 Mount Pinatubo eruption show corn yields in the U.S. Midwest drop significantly in the first post-eruption season due to reduced sunlight and altered growing conditions. Yellowstone's ash would create far more severe impacts given the volume and proximity to agricultural regions. Volcanic ash particles contain sharp, glass-like fragments that slice through plant tissue while blocking sunlight essential for photosynthesis. Corn plants exposed to even moderate ash accumulation suffer complete leaf burn and stem collapse within days. Soybean fields experience similar destruction as ash particles block stomata and prevent normal plant functions. Soil acidification occurs rapidly as volcanic ash alters pH levels from neutral to highly acidic conditions. The chemical composition includes compounds that make soil unsuitable for most crops, creating conditions documented in previous volcanic events. Heavy metals leach from ash deposits into soil systems, concentrating at dangerous levels that persist for years after the initial eruption. These toxins remain in agricultural soils long after ash removal efforts, making farmland unusable for extended periods. Livestock populations face immediate mortality as fine ash particles clog respiratory systems. Dairy cattle across Wisconsin and Minnesota begin dying within hours of exposure as volcanic ash causes permanent lung damage and fluid buildup. The state's 1.3 million dairy cows produce 30.6 billion pounds of milk annually, but ash contamination threatens the majority of herds in affected areas. Surviving cattle suffer from consuming ash-contaminated feed, leading to digestive complications and eventual death. Swine operations in Iowa house 24.6 million pigs that generate 7.7 billion pounds of pork annually for domestic and international markets. Pigs prove extremely vulnerable to ash inhalation due to their sensitive respiratory systems. Volcanic ash triggers severe pneumonia in swine populations, with high mortality rates in areas receiving significant ashfall. Contaminated feed containing volcanic particles causes internal injuries in animals that survive the initial respiratory crisis. Poultry farms across the Midwest lose entire flocks as chickens and turkeys suffocate from ash inhalation. Iowa's 60 million laying hens produce 16.2 billion eggs annually, but volcanic ash infiltrates ventilation systems designed for normal air filtration. The microscopic ash particles bypass standard filters and accumulate in bird respiratory systems, causing mass die-offs within hours of initial exposure.